Hey, welcome back to Danford Golf. Today we are going to be talking all about the hips, what they're going to be doing in the backswing and impact and on the through swing. When we're talking about this, you also have to understand that everybody's hips are built differently. Some people are going to be more flexible, some people will be less flexible. The majority of the population will probably fall on that side of being less flexible. So we're going to break down everybody's types of flexibility and what their hips will be doing based on their flexibility to help you play your best, all right? Because if you're trying to do something that you're not created to do, you're going to be able to tell pretty easily by the fact that maybe your distance isn't there where it should be. So if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe. If you're a subscriber, we appreciate any thumbs up, or those who aren't subscribers, make sure you subscribe, hit that bell button, give us a thumbs up. If you have a comment down below, we appreciate those also. We usually answer those too. So let's talk about the hips. So we're going to focus on what your hips should be doing in the backswing. I'm just going to very simplify it because we could talk about a bunch of different things that your hips should be doing. So we're just going to talk about basically two things for kind of each position.
It's all in the hips. Hey, it's all in. Come on, work with me now. It's all in the hips. Yeah, it's all in the hips. It's all in the hips.
The first thing that I want you to focus on when your hips are moving in your backswing, all right? We're going to focus on basically players who aren't as mobile as maybe what you see on TV, because most of us aren't, right? But this will really apply to what they kind of do also. So the first thing I want you to do is I want your hips to turn deep, right? So I want that right hip to feel like it moves into like a wall behind you. If you're not quite sure if your hips are turning at that point in time, all right, because it's kind of maybe a little bit of illusion, all right? If I have hips turned deep, you can see that my club starts to move, okay? All right, so number one, hip turns deep, right? And that really helps the weight get into the heel, which we like, and the hips are actually turning. We like all of those things, right? We need that right hip to turn deep. That's number one. So after you've started to get that hip to turn deep, all right, the next thing I want you to check for is if you're wearing pants or shorts or whatever, I want to see a little crease right here. All right, that little crease is showing me that you're moving into, basically, I don't want to call your hip capsule, or basically you're moving into your hip properly, right? If it looks like your pants kind of stay flat, right, you're not moving into that hip properly, and so you're not quite turning your hips the way we want to help you create the most power, okay? So get into that right heel, get that hip to move backwards. You can see it's not a slide when I do that, right? It's basically moving cross body, and then I create that crease. So those are the two things that I want you to focus on in your backswing with your hip turn. All right, hips at impact. A lot of people, I mean, if you've watched Instagram or basically golf at all this weekend, we saw Charlie Woods all over the place, and we saw how open his hips were at impact. That doesn't really work for us because we're not in that mobile category, all right? He's like 12 years old. He's super mobile. He's got Tiger Woods as a golf coach, all right? So forget about what you see on TV a lot of times. That doesn't work for the average player, all right? So this is where we get a lot of power loss. Is I see people, they get to the top, all right? Let's say we loaded our hips and everything correctly. Their first move is they try to get their hips really open. And most people are kind of immobile, or they're stuck. Even good players, all right? They just can't get their hips open to that extent to be successful. What happens when you try to turn your hips really fast is we tend to cast the club early, and you just get out of position. A lot of times it causes us to swing over the top, right? So this is what I want you to do with your hips into impact. So you've loaded your hips correctly. Into impact, I want you to feel like your right leg stays right where we talked about, and then your left leg is just going to do that. That is your first move, is your left leg kind of starts to open up, okay? The reason I want your left leg to do that is it's going to kind of slow down your hips. It's going to basically help you create better timing so you don't release the club so early, all right? If you're trying to create the lag, this is something that you can kind of do. It actually slows down your hips. I know we don't talk about that very often, but I want you to feel like you're slowing down your hips. This is for the average player. It is going to help out. So we load, left leg is the first thing that starts to open up a little bit. That's step number one. All right, step number two has to do with what your right leg's gonna do. So we're gonna get to the top, front leg starts to open. All right, I see a lot of people from here we get the early extension, because then we try to force that hip to get out in front because we think we're turning our hips, and you are, but you're early extending, which causes lots of other issues. So you're gonna get to the top, open, and then your right leg is it's gonna feel like it rolls towards the left foot on the inside, right? So it's gonna be that move. So you're gonna take it to the top, open, feel it start to roll, right? And it's gonna help you stay in your posture, and you're not gonna flare your hips open too quickly. Those are two simple things that you can kind of focus on. I'm gonna say to help you slow down your hips, because a lot of us try to open them too quickly, all right, so what we look for just post-impact is we're gonna focus on basically where your weight is. So once you've done all these moves to get here, just impact or just right before, I want a lot of weight going into the heel, all right? All right, and the second thing is I want you to feel like you kind of push into the ground a little bit with your lead foot. This little move on the downswing will help that. And then you just have to push in, and you're gonna notice the weight will go to the heel more automatically. So to the top, down, there, okay? Starts to go into the heel, and then push, right? And try to get those nice straight arms through impact, right? And you can see that my hips are open. Usually they like to say that your hips should be anywhere between 35, 40 degrees at impact, open. I think those are tour numbers. For the average golfer, I'm okay if you're like 5, 10 degrees open, just because I don't want you to swing so hard and open so fast that club comes down steep, right? And then we hit all those flares out to the right or those slices. You're better off, I would say, for the average player to actually play with hips that into impact are very close to being square, right? That's going to actually probably help most of you stop from swinging over the top so drastically. All right, so I hope this helps a little bit. If you have questions, if you are somebody who is really mobile, you can put a comment down below, and I can try to do a video on that later on.